Welcome to Tom Rhodes Smart Camp. Hooray for humanity. Is that a new shirt? I really like what you're wearing today. I have a little bit of a cold. I don't know if it's snowing wherever you're at. I was in Ireland last month and it was raining every day. It was cold. It was windy. I love Ireland. It was great to be there, but I'm happy I don't live in that shit. I see that it's massive snowstorms are hitting Canada and the northeastern United States, Europe. And again, I love those places, but I'm happy I don't live in that shit. Canadian people say there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only the wrong clothing. So hopefully you've got the right clothing if you're living somewhere that's cold and nasty. I have a little bit of cold, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. If you're sick too, there seems to be the snot and flu cold virus is going around, and you got to take care of yourself. You got to fill your cupboard and be prepared for winter. Get lots of chicken soup. Get oranges. If you get a cold, you got to attack it with fresh vitamin C. And squeezing fresh lemons into tea with honey. Mint is always good. I like mint, honey, with lots of fresh lemons squeezed inside. That's always good. But you got to bombard the shit with lots of natural vitamin C and chicken soup. For whatever reason, the components that it has is the best way to nurture yourself back to health in the winter months. Anyway, isn't that a nice way to start the podcast? What a thoughtful, loving man you are, Tom Rhodes. Let me just say right off the bat that life is like my hair. You've got to make the best of what you have left. And it's interesting. I was in the last week, I stayed home. A friend of mine in Phoenix that I was communicating with, he said, when you don't put out a podcast for a while, I suspect that you've got some shit going on in your personal life. And I told him, you nailed it. That's why a couple years ago, I wasn't putting out very many episodes because, I was just fucking dealing with some shit. But I've been on this mission to try and put one out more regularly and every week if I can. And then a couple weeks ago, I was at some party in Los Angeles for all these comedians. And there was a lot of famous comedians there. And, I've lost a lot of friendships to fame. It's funny and interesting in comedy. When some people get famous, they just fuck off and you never hear from them again. Or the worst part, when they try and jam you into, they'll reach out to you, your famous comedian friend, and they'll say, let's get together. And then you get together and they've invited 3 other people. So you're not in the main group of friends anymore. You're in the marginal group of friends, and they want to see you all at once. There's 4 other people that they would like to see but haven't had time for, and they think, hey, we'll just squeeze them all together. So anyway, that's I don't want to be in any situations like that anymore. I don't want to be anybody's marginal friend. But a good friend of mine had a party. There was lots of comedians there, lots of famous comedian friends or people who used to be friends of mine. And then it was just mind-blowing in this this wonderful venue where this party was. There was the people broke off into little cliques. And then there were certain comedians that I've known for over 30 years that were standing right next to me who didn't even bother to say hello. I was looking at them and, I'm trying to be engaged in whatever conversations I'm having. But there was a couple people in particular that I know saw me, knew exactly who the fuck I was, and purposefully didn't say hello to me. And, I wish I wasn't bothered by shit like that. But, what I just want you to know, the parable of this story, is that it's exactly like high school. Nothing has changed. There's still like the people who think their shit don't stink and they don't need to say hi to people, and then they'll go gather in their little cliques, and they're too cool for the rest of the party. Fuck you people. I'm the coolest person at this party. I always was, and I always will be, and none of you have lived the life that I have. That's great. You've earned millions and millions of dollars, but you know what? I thought your last comedy special sucked, and you have nothing of importance to share with humanity. So anyway, and I wish I didn't hold grudges against people, but it's hard not to remember shit like this when it happens. But anyway, wherever you are in your life, your group of friends, whatever your work situation is, I'm sure you're dealing with the exact same thing because there's outgoing, generous people in the world, and then there's just shit sticks who are buttholes for no reason. So my mother, whenever I have any problems of any kind, she's always telling me to read the Psalms. And that's always her golden advice, always forever, is to read Psalms, my little honey, my little bun bun. And here, hooray for the Bible and hooray for Psalms. Here, let me share this one with you. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. That's from Psalms 1:1-2. The book that I like to go back to is Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai by Yamamoto Tsunetomo. And I've reached back for this book. So last week when I was home, I've been on the road so much this year, and I didn't take any sets around the city, and I just chose to stay home. And I only went out a couple times. So like the grocery store, I went to get a haircut, then I went to this party and then there was lots of wonderful people that I hadn't seen in a long time. It's funny how we just like concentrate on something about human wiring, that we focus on the negative things. But I've gotten so much love from comedians I've known forever, young comedians I've been working with lately in Ireland. I got lots of love, and it's funny that you concentrate on these things. But I stayed home. But there's something good in everything, right? I think that's the point. Like whenever something bad happens, there's always like a good thing that happens later on. I think this is the balance of the universe. Like a few years ago when I got obsessed with hot yoga, I was doing it to try and win this woman back in Toronto that I had broken up with. But I ended up meeting the woman that I'm currently in love with, and I never would have met her if I hadn't have started doing that hot yoga class. And the whole reason I started doing that hot yoga class was so I could get back with the Toronto woman. So anyway, I was talking to my friend Carl Spain, brilliant Irish comedian, and he had just been in Switzerland. And it was about 15 years ago. I was playing in. He was telling me how much he loved Switzerland, and I was, and especially now at this time of year with the Christmas markets. And I was telling him I had done a tour in Switzerland. This is like, I don't know, guys, 10 years ago, because I was living in LA. And I did this tour in Switzerland, and the last night of the tour was in Basel. And then I got snowed in. I was supposed to fly back to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam fly back to Los Angeles. But a massive snowstorm had hit Europe, and the airport in Amsterdam was closed down for a few days. The Basel airport was shut down. and I was stuck in Basel for 3 days, and it was absolutely wonderful. And they had this massive Christmas market, and then I spent 3 days enjoying the Christmas holiday spirit in Basel, Switzerland, and I never would have gotten to experience that had had I not been snowed in. Oh, and that was the same trip that my luggage got damaged. My beautiful piece of Tumi luggage, and the airline gave me money to replace it. And anyway, I've told that story before. There was another thing that upset me last week that I forgot to mention up front here. That there's this. My manager offered to pay for this company called Up High to take over my social media. And so they were doing it for like 4 months, and then for whatever reason, my manager changed his mind. I have no idea how much money it cost, and then I had sent them all these VHS tapes and all of these hard drives, and I sent them this what's it called, a Promise Raid hard drive, this massive hard drive, and like however many years ago I spent, it was like $2,000 for this thing, and it's got my entire archive of my career on it, and my personal memories, and all kinds of videos and stuff. It's the main archive of my body of work and my personal memories. And the guy who's the boss of this company, I told him in every communication, send the hard drives back FedEx, and I will pay for it. And his editor did not do that. And he didn't even take it to UPS, where they would like wrap it in bubble wrap or something. This moron editor took this fragile, beautiful piece of just delicate, this fierce piece of technology that holds my archive career and all my personal memories. The guy took it to the post office, and he put it in a box that was too big, with all my other small hard drives. And then the box showed up. It had like practically disintegrated, and the big massive hard drive was broken. And so I've been dealing with that for the last week. And oh my God, that was like, forget the party and you can kind of laugh off these morons. Like, maybe one day in the future I'll talk about, I don't like to talk shit about people, so I'm not naming any names, but there's a few people that are massive superstar comedians. They have millions of dollars in the bank, and I suspect that they are personally miserable human beings. And I'm all upset over a $2,000 hard drive because it's these memories in my career are priceless to me. But that was something that was my main source of anger, and why I've been seething, and then why I didn't put out a podcast last week, because I think we should keep our anger to ourselves. I think we need a war on anger. I think there's too much anger in the world, and if you can help it, you should not show your anger to anyone. So this is me 2 weeks later, slightly calmed down after being so unbelievably blind with rage and anger that this moron editor guy just put this big hard drive in a box, and he took it to the post office. And the post office doesn't give a fuck. And so this thing is broken. I'm still trying to resolve it. The hard drive needs to be replaced. So we'll see this week how this company Up High is going to handle this. If they're going to make me take the hit, which I'll never shut up about if they do that. But they definitely should replace this thingy. So yeah, but anyway, when bad things happen, good things seem to balance them out. Maybe even if it takes years and years for that to happen. So last week I stayed home and I watched. Wow, what a week! The Jimmy Cliff died. Love Jimmy Cliff. The Harder They Come, The Bigger They Fall. Great song. Sitting in Limbo, another great song. And Jesus, I've just been listening to a lot of Jimmy Cliff in the past week. And then I stayed home, so happy to be home from being gone for so long. And I started watching different movies. And one of the movies that I watched, I haven't seen in years, I try and watch it every few years, is Ghost Dog, starring Forrest Whitaker. And this is where I learned about the book Hagakure, or Hagakure, however you pronounce it. Hagakure. I always thought it was Hagakure. But the automated voice on a YouTube video I watched said otherwise. They pronounced it Hagakure. All right. So here's this. So I was Googling. So the author Yamamoto. Oh, so Ghost Dog, you got to see this film. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Forrest Whitaker plays this. He's like a guy who lives in the ghetto in like Brooklyn or somewhere. And he's got pigeons he's raising on the roof of his apartment building. So he is like a secret assassin for these mafia guys in New York. And they can only communicate with him through carrier pigeon. And so he is an isolated guy. He doesn't have any friends. And he's an assassin. And he fancies, he's following the guidance in this book of how to be a samurai, Hagakure, the book of the samurai. And then so like all throughout the movie, like these different quotes pop up in the film. And that's how I like fell in love with this book, and I had to get it. I remember the movie came out, I think, in 1999. And I remember I saw it in like the year 2000 when I moved to Amsterdam in the neighborhood of Walter Graafsmeer. There was an old Art Deco movie theater that has since closed and is now a radio station. And I think that was the last movie that was ever showed there. So here's the thing. So I was Googling the Yamamoto Tsunetomo. And this is a little thing that, and I never look at Reddit, because Reddit seems like Twitter or X or whatever the fuck it's called now. Just negativity and hate and shit. And so this little thing popped up when I Googled Hagakure Yamamoto Tsunetomo. So here's the Reddit quote. Hagakure, noun, a book of propaganda by a bitter failure of an old man who was obsessed with the days of yore and was forced into retirement. Okay, well, so I watched some videos on YouTube yesterday. I mean, and that's kind of like, I mean, if you're a dick, that's the way you would look at it. So he was an older samurai guy, and so there were different kingdoms in Japan, and he was of this Edo kingdom, and all these different kingdoms had different ways of conducting yourself as a samurai. So, and the meaning and purpose of samurais changed over these 700 these 7 centuries, so 700 years that samurais ruled Japan, and so the different regions and different kingdoms had different ways about them. So this guy wrote this book collecting this knowledge, and this was supposed to just be to enrich the kingdom that he was in and his advice on the way you should be a samurai. So I've talked about this in the past, but this book, and I remember I took this to Japan, and I read some of these quotes on stage when I was in Tokyo. And oddly enough, and the guy who cuts my hair is from Japan, and he had never heard of this book either. And a lot of people in Japan had never heard of it. And I only knew about this book from the movie Ghost Dog. So here are some of the highlights from this book that I love. Everything in this world is but a marionette show. So, things are being controlled by puppeteers or people are, take that however you want it. All right, here we go. Let's get to some good stuff. This is the kind of philosophy stuff of Hagakure that I love. Throughout your life, advance daily, becoming more skillful than yesterday, more skillful than today. This is never ending. This is the way of the samurai. I remember that Tom Cruise movie, The Last Samurai. That was like, I wasn't that crazy about that film. I like the opening scene where he's this drunk Civil War veteran guy, and he's like this carnival sideshow attraction, and he's had too much to drink, and then he goes up there and tells the people how horrible war is. But then later he ends up in Japan, and then the nice quote that they had, where they're showing everybody when they wake up in Japan about once they wake up, they start going to work on perfecting whatever their specialty is or whatever they're interested in. And that's what that quote reminds me of. A man who makes a mistake once will be considered. All right, fuck all that. A man who has never once erred is dangerous. Oh, sounds like our president. He's never made a mistake. When the time comes, there is no moment for reasoning, and if you have not done your inquiring beforehand, there is most often shame. Reading books and listening to people's talk are for the purpose of prior resolution. Above all, the way of the samurai should be in being aware that you do not know what is going to happen next, and in the querying every item day and night. Victory and defeat are matters of the temporary force of circumstances. The way of avoiding shame is different. It is simply in death. Even if it seems certain that you will lose, retaliate. Neither wisdom nor technique has a place in this. A real man does not think of victory or defeat. He plunges recklessly towards an irrational death. By doing this, you will awaken from your dreams. Wow. He plunges recklessly towards an irrational death. What a... Anyway, I like this stuff. And, I'm sure the Psalms are exciting, and, I should spend more time reading it, but it seems more fun to read about samurais, don't you think? What is essential in terms of purpose and discipline? It is to become of the mind that is right now pure and lacking complications. People in general all seem to be dejected. When one has a pure and uncomplicated mind, his expression will be lively. When one is attending to matters, there is one thing that comes forth from his heart. That is, in terms of one's Lord, loyalty. In terms of one's parents, filial piety. In martial affairs, bravery. And apart from that, something that can be used by all the world. This is very difficult to discover. Once discovered, it is again difficult to keep in constant effect. There is nothing outside the thought of the immediate moment. So this was written hundreds of years ago, and, it's... a lot of it sounds like he could be speaking to us directly today. So, check this out, for example. Furthermore, during the last 30 years, customs have changed. Now, when young samurai get together, if there is not just talk about money matters, loss and gain, secrets, clothing styles, or matters of sex, there is no reason to gather together at all. Customs are going to pieces. One can say that formerly, when a man reached the age of 20 or 30, he did not carry despicable things in his heart, and thus neither did such words appear. If an elder unwittingly said something of that sort, He thought of it as a sort of injury. This new custom probably appears because people attach importance to being beautiful before society and to household finances. What things a person should be able to accomplish if he had no haughtiness concerning his place in society. It is a wretched thing that the young men of today are so contriving and so proud of their material possessions. Men with contriving hearts are lacking in duty. Lacking in duty, they will have no self respect. Wow. So, I mean, this book is all about how to conduct yourself, how to carry yourself, and, how to be a person of dignity and have respect for yourself. You will be tripped up by people when your resolution is lax. Oh yeah, this is the one that I love. When one is writing a letter, he should think that the recipient will make it into a hanging scroll. And I think that goes for like emails and text messages. When you send a message or write a letter, you should always pretend like this person is going to save it forever. All right. In the words of the ancients, one should make his decisions within the space of 7 breaths. I've thought about that before. Like, you think about it, like 1, 2. Like if you like silently breathe 7 times, that's a decent amount of time. So you should make all of your decisions within the space of 7 breaths. Like, don't decide on something immediately. Like, you should at least reflect on it in the space of 7 breaths. I think that's pretty good advice. I have always been obsessed with one idea: to be able to realize my heart's desire. A person with a bit of wisdom is one who will criticize the times. This is the basis of disaster. A person who is discreet in speaking will be useful during the good times and will avoid punishment during the bad. How do you feel about these times we're living in? Everything's fucking expensive. Plane tickets. It's ridiculous. What is called generosity is really compassion. In the Shanae, it is written, "Seen from the eye of compassion, there is no one to be disliked." One who has sinned is to be pitied all the more. There is no limit to the breadth and the depth of one's heart. There is room enough for all. That we still worship the sages of the 3 ancient kingdoms is because their compassion reaches us yet today. I love that. I love this very much. Seen from the eye of compassion, there is no one to be disliked. Bob Dylan wrote that book, what was it, Chronicles. And I know this has been said in different ways at different times, but he said you should always be nice to everyone you meet because everyone you meet is carrying their own burden or their own heavy load. So this is all pretty basic information, and I know I've read from this book before in the past, but as we're kicking into winter and you're going to be isolated, it's good to remember, the way. And this is the quote that's in the movie Ghost Dog. There's a lot of stuff in here like about the proper way to behead somebody, and I'm not like reading that shit, and like stuff about killing, but I just like this idea about having compassion, having dignity, and then like perfecting your skill or your art, whatever it is. So this is a line this is one of the quotes that's in the movie. When one has made a decision to kill a person, even if it will be very difficult to succeed by advancing straight ahead, it will not do to think about going at it in a long roundabout way. One's heart may slacken. He may miss his chance, and by and large, there will be no success. The way of the samurai is one of immediacy, and it is best to dash in headlong. There was other quote where saying even if like you're facing an army of thousands. The one that you've marked with your vision that you're going to take out, that you should advance towards the one. But again, that's not a Christian way to look at things, is it? Here we go. Page 66. Oh no! If one were to say in a word what the condition of being a samurai is, its basis lies first in seriously devoting one's body and soul to his master. And if one is asked what to do beyond this, it would be to fit oneself inwardly with intelligence, humanity, and courage. The combining of these three virtues may seem unobtainable to the ordinary person, but it is easy. Intelligence is nothing more than discussing things with others. I love that. Intelligence is nothing more than discussing things with others. Limitless wisdom comes from this. Humanity is something done for the sake of others, simply comparing oneself with them and putting them in the fore. Courage is gritting one's teeth. It is simply doing that and pushing ahead, paying no attention to the circumstances. Anything that seems above these three is not necessary to be known. As for outward aspects, there are personal appearance, one's way of speaking, and calligraphy. And as all of these are daily matters, they improve by constant practice. Basically, one should perceive their nature to be one of quiet strength. If one has accomplished all these things, then he should have a knowledge of our area's history and customs. After that, he may study the various arts as recreation. If you think it over, being a retainer is simple. And these days, if you observe people who are even a bit useful, you will see that they have accomplished these three outward aspects. Wow. It's like in Ireland, that's a common insult. They'll say, that person's useless. Or this item, this object is useless. I mean, I couldn't think of anything more horrific than to be termed useless. What an insult that is. Okay. One should be careful not to say things that are likely to cause trouble at the time. When some difficulty arises in the world, people get excited, and before one knows it, the matter is on everyone's lips. This is useless. If worse comes to worse, you may become the subject of gossip, or at least you will have made enemies by saying something unnecessary and will have created ill will. It is said that at such a time it is better to stay at home and think of poetry. Okay, this is one of the most important quotes in the entire book. And this is one that I think about just people who are shit stirrers, people who gossip, talk shit about people, or just cause general in trouble, like in public, within families, within relationships, whatever. Okay, so this is one of the most valuable quotes from the book. The heart of a virtuous person has settled down, and he does not rush about at things. A person of little merit is not at peace, but walks about making trouble and is in conflict with all. Wow. See, I saved you money for having to read this book, because I'll read it for you. Okay, so not too many left that I put little slivers of paper, little bookmarks in to hold these because I've read through this book in the last 3 days, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to read these on the podcast. There is a saying that goes, no matter what the circumstances might be, one should be of the mind to win. I think another thing that's bothering me is that the baseball season is over, and it's winter is the time for the thug sports: hockey, football, basketball, the sports that you basically have to be big and muscular to play. And all right, I'll shut up with my sports talk. Here's another one. This is great. A man exists for a generation, but his name lasts to the end of time. That's like that. I think there's a quote like that in the original Gladiator movie. Yeah, that a man's reputation lasts a lifetime. Okay, so here's the last quote that I'm going to read you. How can one human being be inferior to another? In all matters of discipline, one will be useless unless he has great pride. Unless one is determined to move the clan by himself, all his discipline will come to naught. Although, like a tea kettle, it is easy for one's enthusiasm to cool, there is a way to keep this from happening. My own vows are the following. Never to be outdone in the way of the samurai. To be of good use to the master. To be filial to my parents. To manifest great compassion and to act for the sake of man. If one dedicates these 4 vows to the gods and Buddhas every morning, he will have the strength of 2 men and will never slip backward. One must edge forward like the inchworm, bit by bit. The gods and Buddhas, too, first started with a vow. Wow. Okay, that's the book. That's all I have for you. Hooray for humanity, indeed. Okay, so that's that. I think now is a good opportunity for me to say, I just paused the recording. I blew my nose. And, now's a good time to point out what a hypocrite I am. Because, I was given all that advice at the beginning about, how to take care of yourself if you have a cold. These things I believe in. When you have a cold, like chicken soup is number 1, and then bombarding it with natural vitamin C and, really taking care of yourself. I have actually not done that. So as much as I'm always pushing this remedy on people I love when they have a cold, I haven't been drinking enough water, much less, I had 1 honey and lemon tea since I've been cold for the last 3 or 4 days, and blah. And I actually screwed up because I had meant to do this at the beginning of this episode. I wanted to talk more about the man Yamamoto Tsunetomo, who wrote and collected these. I think most of it is just wisdom he collected as how to conduct yourself as a samurai. And then there was that nasty thing that the person wrote on Reddit that I thought was really bullshit. So, this basically is what it all comes down to with Hagakure. And where the man who wrote it's coming from. So Yamamoto Tsunetomo teaches us that true victory lies not in wealth or fame, but in the strength of character and the impact of our deeds. By nurturing loyalty and dedication, fostering humility, living with disciplined grace. I love those words. Living with disciplined grace. I think that's how you should move about this world. Whatever your thing is and wherever you live in. We not only honor the samurai way, but also enrich our own lives, illuminating a path to a life of quiet honor and enduring legacy. Wow. Now that's... See how much more of a powerful episode this would have been had I read that at the beginning. But so basically that's where my man is coming from. And, in all fairness to my mom, and it's really wonderful. That's one of the good things about social media is wherever I go in the world, people who know me, people who follow me, know how close I am with my mother and how much I love my mother. And, So like people always ask me, how's your mother? And I absolutely love that. Talked to my mom earlier today. I try and talk to her every day. And, gosh, I could have talked to her longer. Sometimes when you're just checking in daily, you go over the basics but we had a good little talk. But so my mom is always saying to read Psalms. And the woman I'm in love with, she's really into Psalms. She like in combating all the difficult shit that she has dealt with this year. It's not, the woman deserves her privacy, but it's ridiculous the amount of hardships that this woman has endured this year. And so she like starts her day reading the Psalms. So I want to I want to give a balance of Hagakure versus the Psalms. So I read the one at the beginning, and my mom's favorite psalm is Psalm 91. So that's the one and that's probably the most popular one. You always hear people say read Psalm 91 or something if you're having problems. And I remember my sister, Psalm 91 was my sister Laura's favorite as well. So, to balance out all that samurai advice for your brain and for the delight of your heart, here is Psalm 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you say, the Lord is my refuge, and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent, for He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because He loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Wow. Okay, wow. Let's, there's, so much to that. Then there's so much, it shows you how powerful faith is to get you through every situation. And I remember during the pandemic, my mom was staying with me and she was saying, we have nothing to worry about, honey. Psalm 91 is protecting us. And it's saying about the, pestilence and, what was that other word? Yeah. Anyway, it protects you. There was a great Sinead O'Connor album called The Lion and the Cobra. There's just so much love, inspiration, and soothing of worried hearts Psalm 91 has given to people. It's hard to argue with that, my dear friends. So I Googled, I always thought that, King David wrote all of them. And so I Googled, and he what a bad motherfucker King David was. He, uh, slays Goliath with a slingshot, and then, later he had the scandal, whatever the story with Bathsheba. I mean, this man's life is fascinating, and that he's sat down and wrote most of these. So I just Googled who wrote the Psalms. The Psalms were not, this is Google. The Psalms were not written by a single author, but by many individuals over a long period, though King David is credited with writing the most. Other named authors include Solomon, Moses, Asaph, and the sons of Korah, as well as other figures like Heman, and Ethan the Ezrahite. A significant portion of the Psalms are also anonymous. King David attributed with a majority of the Psalms, with at least 73 named in the superscriptions. Solomon wrote 2 Psalms, 72 and 127. Moses wrote 1 Psalm, 90. Asaph, a worship leader under David, wrote 12 Psalms. Sons of Korah, a Levitical family, wrote 11 Psalms. Heman the Ezrahite wrote 1 Psalm, 88. Ethan the Ezrahite wrote 1 Psalm, 89. And I think I think these were supposed to be sung. I remember the poet Allen Ginsberg. He had memorized and was like, he got into like Buddhism and ancient, chanting and things like that. But then he like dove really hard into the Psalms, and so he was singing them. And I think it was the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago, where all these hippies were protesting the Vietnam War, and there's this famous crackdown of when the cops came, and crazy ass Allen Ginsberg, the poet, he was running out front where they were, the police were about to crack some hippie heads, and he was singing the Psalms to these people, and people just thought he was nuts. And then when just a few years later, Allen Ginsberg was on that Bob Dylan tour, the Rolling Thunder tour, and they would have him go on at the beginning, and he was singing the Psalms, and so they kind of cut him from the bill. But anyway, what a sweetheart, loving man. So, okay, you decide. There's something to be learned, from all the great texts, and you choose what works for your life, what doesn't. But I think that's a pretty good presentation today. I veered away from celebrity gossip, which I could have done if I was a lesser human being, but I shared with you some shit that pissed me off in the past week. It's wow. Finding forgiveness and acceptance isn't always the easiest path. But what else has happened? I watched the Eddie Murphy documentary on Netflix. Really super funny thing he does at the end, where he's got a ventriloquist puppet of Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby, and he does this conversation. Watch this great series called Titans of Hollywood. Loved that. There's another. So it was really nice. I actually stayed home and watched things and relaxed, and did not nurture my health and my cold like I gave you the remedy for. But I watched this other series called Bad Sport on Netflix, and there's like these little hour documentaries and about like scandalous things that have happened in sports. Like the first one's this college basketball player who was shaving points, but then the one that I found the most fascinating was this race car driver, this guy from Miami, who and this is like in the 1980s in America when I was growing up there in Florida. He's bringing in big shiploads of weed, and he's selling all this weed to get the millions of dollars that it takes to have this, Formula One Indianapolis 500 kind of car racing team. Just absolutely fascinating stuff. So, and then another big news. I don't know if you saw that the last penny has been printed. They will never ever make any more penny coins. Let me take a sip of this coffee. Where's your mint, honey, and lemon? Be nice to yourself, especially when you're sick. So there's no more pennies. So does that mean that our good luck has run out? I've told the story many times before how it's funny. So many things about me and the person that I am, I get from my dad or was influenced by my dad. But my dad always found it good luck if he found a penny on heads. He'd go, "Oh, good luck." And he would bend down and pick it up and put the penny in his pocket. So because of that, my whole life, whenever I see a penny on the ground and it's on tails, I always flip it over and leave it there, because some guy like my dad is going to come walking up, and then he's going to have this momentary little burst of happiness thinking, "Oh, I got good luck." So anyway, we'll see how many years it is until pennies completely disappear from our lives. But yeah, that was my main concern, was guys like my dad, finding good luck. Okay, so we got the Book of the Samurai, we got Psalms. I think that was, this episode started a little slow. Took me a minute to get my footing, but haven't recorded in a few weeks. And I think I've presented some pretty valuable knowledge here. Yeah. Hooray for humanity. I want your life to be better. I want my life to be better. And, what was the walk with disciplined grace? What was those? Living. Okay, that's a big pause. Living with humility and disciplined grace. Okay, well, you know it. You get it. You took notes. All right, I love you very much. And yeah, that's today's episode. And be nice to yourself. Kisses.
Jose, can you hear that Tom Rose is here? T-O-M-M, R-H-O, D-S-E-S, the mother with the miles for sure. Jose, can you hear that Tom Rose is here? T-O-M-M, get it, R-H-O, D-S-E-S, the mother with the miles for sure.